Welcome to This Explainer, folks. Today, we're diving headfirst into the thrilling, completely interconnected history of how the ultimate weapon spread across the globe. We are going to trace a wild web of secrets, cutting-edge science, and high-stakes geopolitical maneuvering that literally reshaped our modern world. And honestly, it continues to threaten it today.
Okay, let's start by looking at the big picture here. Out of the 195 countries on Earth today, just a tiny sliver, literally only 10 nations, actually possess nuclear weapons. Think about that. That is roughly 5% of the entire world holding the power to alter the course of human history in an absolute instant. While most nations rely on, advanced conventional militaries, this incredibly exclusive club holds the ultimate destructive power.
So this brings up a fascinating mystery, one that pretty much dictates global security today. How exactly did these few nations acquire such terrifying power? Well, as we'll see from the historical record, it wasn't just a bunch of isolated scientific geniuses having eureka moments. No, this was often achieved through incredibly high-stakes espionage, elaborate honey traps, and outright betrayal, sometimes even between the absolute closest of allies.
All right, let's jump into Act 1, the Pandora's Box and Friend to Foe. The whole story really kicks off with the American origin. Back in 1938, German scientists successfully discovered nuclear fission. And let me tell you, this massive breakthrough sparked absolute panic. It actually prompted Albert Einstein himself to send a dire warning to the US president, basically saying, hey, Hitler could use this to build a world-ending bomb. In response, the US poured just unprecedented amounts of money into the top-secret Manhattan Project. This massive effort culminated in the successful Trinity test out in New Mexico in 1945, and of course, shortly after, the bombings in Japan that ultimately ended World War II. But here's where things get messy. The US wanted a total monopoly on this brand new technology. They effectively froze out their Soviet allies by completely halting the sharing of research papers in 1941. Well, the USSR felt intentionally excluded, naturally, so they infiltrated the Manhattan Project with spies. But the US wasn't naive. They actually turned some of these spies into double agents and started feeding them fake information. It's like something straight out of a movie. Despite this incredible cat-and-mouse game, though, the Soviets managed to piece together enough legitimate data to test their own bomb, codenamed First Lightning, in Kazakhstan in 1949. And just like that, the Cold War was officially sparked. Now, this betrayal triggered a really rapid escalation. To stay ahead of the Soviets, the US pushed the scientific boundaries even further, creating the hydrogen bomb in 1952. And get this, within a mere 5 years, the USSR followed suit in 1955. The UK wasn't far behind either, testing theirs in 1957. What's absolutely wild about the UK's timeline is that they actually had to restart their entire program from scratch. Why? Because the US betrayed a wartime agreement, the Quebec Agreement, and flat out refused to share the final nuclear data with them. This rapid escalation brought a truly monumental leap in destructive power. The original atom bombs used fission, splitting atoms apart. But these new hydrogen bombs, they used fusion. That means joining atoms together, literally replicating the exact same process that powers our sun. To put that terrifying upgrade into perspective, it made the hydrogen bomb roughly 450 times more powerful than the weapon dropped on Hiroshima. 450 times.
But being a close ally didn't somehow magically prevent proliferation. Take France, for example. During the 1956 Suez Canal crisis over in Egypt, France and Britain were forced into a totally humiliating retreat, mostly due to severe economic and military pressure from both the US and the USSR. France realized right then and there that they could never truly be independent without having the ultimate weapon. Driven by that massive embarrassment, they aggressively mined uranium from their colonies in Africa and successfully built and tested their very own bomb in the Sahara Desert by 1960.
Moving right along to Act 2, regional dominoes and shadow games. Over in Asia, we start to see a pure, terrifying geopolitical chain reaction of fear. It's literally the domino effect in action. During the Korean War, US nuclear threats directly triggered China to pursue the bomb, which they got in 1964. Well, China's test, combined with a border war defeat, seriously spoke India into testing their own weapon in 1974. And, as you can probably guess, India's test absolutely terrified neighboring Pakistan, driving them to develop and eventually test their own arsenals by 1998. And the specific details behind these tests, they are just incredible. Every single test tells a story. When China finally succeeded in 1964, Chairman Mao actually named their first test Project 596. Now, why that specific number? It was a literal slap in the face to the Soviet Union. The 59 stood for 1959, and the 6 stood for June. That was the exact month and year the USSR, who had initially been helping them, suddenly withdrew all their scientists due to a political rift. They basically left China high and dry to figure it out alone. Then we have India. They tested their bomb in 1974 out in the Rajasthan desert under the highly ironic guise of Project Smiling Buddha. They actually had the boldness to claim it was a peaceful nuclear explosion. Well, you can imagine how that went over. It completely infuriated the US and Canada, mostly because India had utilized civilian reactor technology provided by those very countries to secretly build a weapon. The immediate result? Extremely strict international sanctions and India's flat-out refusal to sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which was the global agreement designed to stop the spread of these exact weapons. Meanwhile, over in the Middle East, the shadow games were just as intense. Israel covertly built an unconfirmed arsenal by 1967. Now, interestingly, American President Kennedy was strictly against this, but his tragic assassination sort of cleared the political path for Israel to proceed. And they kept this a fiercely guarded secret for decades. That is, until 1986, when a rogue technician named Mordecai Vanunu leaked photos of the program to the British press. The aftermath of that leak, Israeli intelligence, Mossad, orchestrated an incredibly elaborate honey trap operation, luring Vanunu across international borders just to capture him and bring him back to face a massive prison sentence. Even complete global isolation couldn't stop this domino effect. Take South Africa. They were facing a massive global boycott over their racist apartheid laws, and at the same time, they feared Soviet expansion in Africa. With literally nowhere else to turn, they formed a secret alliance with Israel, trading their uranium for weapons research. In 1979, an American satellite detected a mysterious double flash in the ocean near South Africa. This became known as the Vela incident, and it's widely suspected to be a joint Israeli-South African nuclear test. But here's the truly remarkable part. After the Soviet collapse in 1990, South Africa became the first and honestly so far the only nation to voluntarily dismantle its entire nuclear arsenal.
All right, that brings us to our final chapter. Act 3, the black market and the future.
So as we noted a bit earlier, Pakistan achieved their bomb in 1998, and they pulled this off largely because a scientist named Dr. A.Q. Khan actually managed to steal enrichment blueprints while working at a facility in Holland. But guys, the story takes a really shocking turn here. Fast forward to 2004, facing intense international pressure, Dr. Khan appears on national television and openly confesses to running a massive black market network. He admitted to selling that exact stolen enrichment technology to Iran, Libya, and North Korea. Just wild. Which naturally brings up a huge question that we need to answer if we want to truly understand global proliferation. Why on earth would a nation like Pakistan share its ultimate, hard-won strategic secret with a country thousands of miles away like North Korea? What was the logic there? Well, the answer, according to the experts, was a highly covert, highly deadly trade between two very desperate nations. See, North Korea had highly advanced no-dong missile designs. That was exactly what Pakistan needed to actually deliver a payload to distant Indian cities. On the flip side of that coin, Pakistan had the blueprints for uranium centrifuges, the absolute vital machines needed to actually build a warhead. North Korea desperately lacked these, so the two countries simply traded their missing puzzle pieces. Armed with this new black market technology, North Korea played an incredibly deceptive game. They actually went ahead and signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty in 1990 while secretly continuing their underground program the whole time. By October 2006, they conducted their first small test, officially becoming the 10th nation in the nuclear club. And then, by 2009, they conducted a second, far more massive test just to project their power. This detonation was so violently powerful, it actually triggered a 5.0 magnitude earthquake on the Richter scale. Absolutely terrifying. So, that leads us to the ultimate question: who is next? The wild history we've just unpacked today shows us that fear and intense rivalry are the ultimate catalysts here. Right now, as we speak, Israel is applying extremely heavy pressure to Iran's current nuclear program. And Saudi Arabia's leadership, they've explicitly stated that if Iran succeeds in building a bomb, they are going to match them step for step. Looking at how every single action in this long history causes a terrifying equal reaction, we have to leave you with this chilling thought. Whose finger is going to be on the button next?